So from your report, can you tell me what your key findings are and what brought you to them?
Sure. There were 6 main themes which were prevalent in the report. Firstly, it was one of the really major themes was about the importance of early help, the critical nature of early help, particularly in those earlier years. And as I've said before, all those 3 young people had very specific issues for them: domestic violence, issues around mental health, issues around speech or social communication difficulties. And it was really unclear what the quality of service was like that was provided for them, if at all, during those times. So the importance of early help was a real kind of major theme in the review. The importance of understanding trauma-informed practice. We know the research tells us that for children who have experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, they are more likely to be involved in serious youth violence or offending behaviour than those young people who have not. So really understanding the importance of trauma on young people's lives, and that has real implications for how we engage with young people, how we build relationships, and that whole idea around relationship competence is absolutely crucial. And these are the things, when we're getting back to what good social work practice looks like, these are the things that we can't put into a numerical box. It's about building relationship competence, understanding young people's experiences, and using techniques such as motivational or attachment-based interviewing. One of the themes, this is the 3rd theme, was around the quality and the timeliness of intervention. For one young person, particularly one of the Manchester young people, he waited for over 9 weeks before somebody saw him following the referral, which is too long. And what the research tells us is that we have to respond almost immediately, in that critical moment, when young people are most susceptible to change. And we know from other initiatives that are going on around the country, the Golden Hour initiative in Camden, that when young people are engaged with at the point of contact or very shortly afterwards, it makes so much more of a tangible difference. The 4th theme was around the quality of multi-agency assessment and planning. How we assess circumstances for young people is really key. Do we involve the wider family? For all those 3 young people, the absence of their fathers was a very pertinent theme. So some of it is around ensuring that we engage with all the relevant adults in the young person's life, and looking at whether we have enough information to make informed decisions. Quality of planning was really key. One of the themes that came out was that plans were sometimes vague, they were non-specific, they were not smart. You will know what smart means, that idea about it. Plans being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. Those things were really lacking, so we need to think about how we plan for young people in a way that's effective. The 5th area was around the critical nature of education and the impact of exclusions. For all 3 young people, exclusion was a significant and pertinent factor, which in some ways facilitated their involvement in youth violence and youth crime. I'm just thinking, one of the young people, I spoke to his sister at length, and she described how she believed he was excluded for a range of relatively minor issues, like throwing things on the floor, swearing at a teacher. But what happened was, he was excluded from school. The education that was provided was just a few hours a week, so he was left on his own in the year running up to his GCSEs. And she described him as really losing aspiration, feeling isolated, feeling lonely, not knowing what to do with himself, and of course being very vulnerable there to exploitation and grooming by some of his more unsavoury associates. So the final thing was around some of the factors that either increased or reduced vulnerability. And I talk a little bit in the report around issues around what's been described as hyper or aggressive masculinity, which is particularly around in the arena of male socialisation, need for respect, the way that impacts on identity, and the correlation of those issues with serious youth violence. What the research tells us is that need for physical defence and respect and the need to carry weapons is very much part of a wider cultural dynamic where young people feel unsafe And a lot of the research, particularly the very good research from young people called Listening to the Experts, talks about young people not feeling safe on the streets and feeling the need to carry weapons. And when I spoke to the Trafford young person who's called YK, which was an abbreviation he chose for himself, his mum talked about how she was constantly asking him, why are you carrying a knife? What is it about your need to carry weapons? And he would say, I don't feel safe, I don't feel safe on the streets, we all do it, it's part of that kind of bravado, which is a really important issue to take into consideration. It's really important to understand that for many young people there's limited trust in authorities. Unfortunately, particularly police and social work, some of the research tells us that actually youth workers have a much better kind of resume, if you like, in terms of how young people perceive them. But some of these issues around relationships, which we talked about before, really key in terms of understanding some of these wider issues. The issue around the confiscation of drugs, one of the Manchester young people, he had quite a significant amount of Class A drug removed from him. One of the things that was neglected was how this impacted, therefore, on his safety. It made him more vulnerable. So the issue around taking danger statements, as it were, understanding what had taken place within a wider arena of exploitation and grooming was really important.